I learned to read when I was about 7. I have read and read since then, reading whatever material I would come across. My relatives used to say, if you continue to read like this, you will go mad one day.
5.5 years ago, I became a father for the first time. I looked at my daughter with tears in my eyes. Welcome, I said. You have mastered the first challenge. You were born in the right place. It was the best feeling, bringing a baby to a safe country. We packed our things and brought our daughter home with us. She was going to live in a spacious flat in a liberal, flourishing city named Vienna.
My interest in reading was nothing short of a miracle. Reading served a very practical purpose in my small Indian village. Students read textbooks for their schools, and adults read shop names, hoardings, and sometimes bank letters. That was it. Two reasons: low levels of literacy and lack of access. There were no books in my house and no library in the village, but I would go to great lengths to find storybooks, newspapers, and other reading material.
My daughter is now 5 years old, and she has never experienced any harm. Recently, she became anxious. What is a Brexit? She asked my wife. My wife explained to her that this means that Britain wants to leave Europe and those two don't get along as well. And our daughter thought this was like a war. We were quick to comfort her. Not here, not now. We live in a peaceful society. War happens elsewhere. And books, well, she has plentiful. And she started to write very early on, just her name. And reading comes very natural to her. You can already tell.
My parents bought me a bicycle when I was about 13. I was allowed to take it to school, but not to the bustling town that sold newspapers. My own small village did not have a newspaper stall. One Sunday afternoon, when my parents were asleep, I sneaked out of the house and went to the town to buy newspapers. I came back with 3 newspapers with their colorful weekend supplements. I felt like a king returning with spoils of war, except I had to enter my house stealthily and not in celebration. Thankfully, my parents did not find out, and I kept repeating my secret expeditions.
I used to be a skateboarder when I was a teenager. My goal was to become a pro rider, or at least a photographer for one of the magazines I loved. Thrasher, Transworld, the 90s were a good place for skateboard media. I was not interested in general news. Why would I? Hanging out with friends, smoking cigarettes, partying. The only thing I knew of my future was I was going to get out of this small town. Skate, party, move to the city.
When I was 15, I decided to become a journalist. I was enticed by the magic of words, storytelling, and the ideals of journalism. I started gathering information about what course to study in college, how much it would cost, and how to apply for it. I was going to be the first person in my family to get a college degree.
I took no particular interest in studying. I finished some courses though. And I knew how to work. I got a job one day at the radio station. Simple job. Pick up the phone and let the presenters in the studio know if anybody interesting was on the line. I had no particular interest in the radio station itself though. I found mainstream media boring and very tasteless.
I wanted to work in English media, not my mother tongue Marathi. When I moved to Mumbai in 2008 and started college, I used to write better than most of my classmates who had a clear advantage of caste and class. I had spent the last few years really working on my language fluency and writing skills.
After some weeks working at the radio station, I discovered something intriguing. Before lunch, the office started to fill with people carrying microphones and recorders. They were very loud. They started to tell stories about what this minister had to say at that press conference, or how the colleague from TV had messed it up again by asking a stupid question. Now these people seemed interesting.
Despite being one of the best students in my class, I started my career with low self-esteem. After finishing my bachelor's degree, I took up a job with a music website in 2012 as a reporter. But it lasted only 3 weeks. I could not cope with the work environment there. I was the first journalist from my family. I had no role models. All the journalists at my workplace were middle class and upper middle class, English educated urbanites. They were far away from me in their culture, lifestyle, and social background. I did not have the cultural capital to blend in with them. But I did not quit journalism. I kept my head low and continued working.
I found out that the loud and interesting people at the radio station were journalists, and I quickly managed to join them, working the ranks from a low-level regional reporter on the phone all day long to one of those guys that come back from an appointment and let everybody in the room know how this and that went horribly wrong for this and that person, and basically how cool I am. Soon enough I realized I am not cool at all. My job is, and I kind of stumbled into it, I have to admit.
On the 29th of March 2019, I got an email that made me a celebrity in the local media. I had received a journalism fellowship, and soon I was going to fly to London and then to Oxford. I was simultaneously excited and nervous. I had never stepped out of India. Actually, I did not even have a passport.
My wife sent me to Oxford. I felt like I needed a break, but I knew I couldn't leave her at home with the 2 kids. They're 1 and 5 now. But she reassured me everything was going to be fine, she said. Hard, still, but fine. So I took this opportunity. Very hesitantly probably, but I made it. Tejas, we both made it.
Yeah, we did. In the beginning of October, I met you, Philipp, and 12 other journalists from across the world. I was a bit scared before setting foot in this country. I did not know what to expect. I was going to be in the white man's land.
It is intimidating to come to a place like Oxford. You meet the most brilliant people of any profession there. For example, when I looked at you, Tejas, I saw a brilliant young man from one of the most interesting countries in the world. India seems like half startup, half superpower. Whereas I come from the old world, Austria. Talking to Tejas opened up a whole new perspective for me.
When you look at people from a distance, they seem so different from you. You feel like you will never be able to relate to them. But after spending 2 months in Oxford, I have realized that that's actually not true. People are people, more or less the same everywhere. They have the same anxieties, vulnerabilities, and also dreams. My feeling of intimidation has gone now. I feel much more confident.
This fall, I became aware of my privilege as a Western journalist. We have no caste system, for example. Colleagues from other parts of the world may face censorship. Paychecks never arrive. You're under constant attacks. The only thing I can do for them, report, give them the spotlight, and let the world know what they endure.